Swinburne University of Technology.
Hi, I'm Professor Josie Arnold, and today in our training modules for postgraduate students, we're looking at the experience of the international student coming to Australia to do a PhD, with particular reference to Joyce Osei Owusu, who is from Ghana. Joyce did her first master's, or her master's, in Denmark, and perhaps we'll start there. Joyce, how did you come to go to Denmark to do your master's?
All right. My sister was studying in Denmark at the time, and then she told me that University of Copenhagen had introduced courses in English. So there was available film studies, media studies, and so I applied. She convinced me to apply, and I did. So I applied for film studies, but that particular year they were admitting for media studies, so they admitted me into media studies. But I had opportunity to do courses in film studies. Yeah.
So why did you choose film studies, Joyce?
I was interested in filmmaking. Not making films per se, but I was somebody who is interested in watching films, talking about films, watching television and all screen products. And so I did my first degree in theater and English, but I opted to do an option in film studies because of that background, my interest in watching films. I can tell you that when I was younger, when I was growing up, I could watch television. That time television wasn't running 24 hours, so we had television running from probably I think 12:30 midnight the television station closes, and I could watch till the point when the television goes blank and there's nothing to be seen again, you know. So that's how passionate I was in watching anything on the screen. And so yeah, when I was admitted to do my first degree, I was admitted to do French, Spanish and English. And I took theater as an option, but that again was because of the interest I had in that area. And so when I got to third year, I was supposed to drop all the courses and leave 2. And so I opted to do English and theater. And my father didn't understand why, because originally I was supposed to do English theater and English, French and Spanish. Yes. And I dropped Spanish, I dropped French, which he was very disappointed with, you know. But yeah, because of that interest, I opted to do theater so I could do film. And so I did my first degree, I did my project in film, documentary, and then that passion was there. So when I got the opportunity, that was what was in my mind to do, to pursue. Yeah. And
how long were you in Denmark?
2.5 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah. So yeah, I applied, and then I got admission with scholarship, and so I left to go and do my master's, and then the course was a whole range of courses in media studies, in film. So I did courses in film analysis and film theory, mediatized society, and there's a whole range of topics that I was interested in and pursued.
And clearly from these topics came your research question. So you went back to Ghana?
Yep, when I finished the master's, I left to go to Ghana, back to my post. I was working with the University of Ghana, so I went back to Ghana to work. And then when I was in Denmark, I had expressed interest in doing a PhD. Mm-hmm. So my supervisor convinced and said, oh, there are nice schools in Australia. I don't know, I have no idea whether she had come to Australia before, but she said a Danish. So she said, oh, there were nice schools, and then I remember I had cousins here. So I contacted them and they said, oh, yeah, you know. And so I wrote a proposal. When I went back to Ghana, I wrote a proposal. And then I was introduced, my cousins introduced me to Professor Kwansaydu. And so I had, we exchanged emails, and I sent him my proposal, and he was interested in the topic and said, oh, okay, if you apply and you get admission, I will be glad to supervise your work.
Okay, well, tell us how you reached the topic.
Okay. The topic is actually an extension of my master's degree. So for my master's topic, I wrote, the topic actually was women in the screen. And I researched on Shirley Frimpong, who is one of the popular female filmmakers in Ghana today. And I looked at her film, her debut film, which was a film she released in 2007. And another film she released in 2008, which was titled Scorned. So I did a study of Life and Living It and Scorned, which are her first two movies. And my main concern was researching on how she represents women. Because at that time, I had read articles about positive representation of women. A lot of articles and studies had said that the images of women in particularly African video films were very negative and misogynistic. And so I decided that, and they had prescribed that images of women should be positive, progressive. And so my concern was to understand what they meant by progressive and positive. And so what I did was I did analysis of those two films, and I did an audience study of female audiences and their perceptions of those images, what they saw as positive, what they saw as progressive, and whatever they saw as it is. And so when I did the audience study, at the end of the research, my analysis with the audience interpretation of the images, I came to realize that when they spoke about progressive for the audiences, actually, not for the critics or the scholars, for the audiences, what they wanted to see as progressive or positive images were images that were relevant to the Ghanaian society or the African society, images that were empowering to women, and images that were relevant, or something, if you call it plausible images, something they could relate to, you know. So that was the outcome of that the study. When I decided to do a PhD, in doing that study, I realized that, there were more women in filmmaking who had never been written about, you know. We didn't know about them. And so I decided that, okay, I was going to extend that topic to include other women that I had come to know, and to learn more about women filmmaking generally in Ghana. And so the PhD topic, I narrowed it down to focus on looking at the general filmmaking practices in Ghana by women, but again focusing tightly on 3 filmmakers. So I focused on one Ghanaian filmmaker who had a sustained career from the early 90s, when women got interested in making films as directors and producers. And then I focused on, again, Shirley, who I had focused on in my master's, and then one diaspora filmmaker. So to give that broad perspective and that multi or pluralistic practices of women's filmmaking in Ghana. And so that's how come I chose those particular 3 women to focus on, again, their representation of women in their films, and again, audiences' interpretation of those images. Now, this time, my interest was not just understanding positive or progressive images, but understanding how they interpreted these images and whether it had anything to do with, it had any link with the filmmakers' intentions, or how they intended the films to be read. So I had to do interviews with the filmmakers to understand what they tried to do with those films that I had chosen to study. And then when I did the audience study, I could see the link or the diversion of where the interpretations had gone and the meanings they brought to it, and what factors had influenced those interpretations of the audiences.
Well, thank you, Joyce. I know that you're well along in your studies now, about to submit. So terrific that you've given us some time here to talk about what it's like. What I noticed you say there, about getting your research question is focus, keeping focused. Could you talk a little bit about keeping focused? Were you challenged by keeping focus, or how would you advise other people to keep focused?
All right. When I began to tell you the truth, the topic was very broad. I didn't even know where I was going with it.
I think that's very typical of a PhD when it begins, doesn't it? So how did you focus it?
Okay. What myself and my supervisors decided to do was that because of the time limit and everything, we decided that first of all, when I began, I thought I was going to do everything.
That's right, yeah.
And I was told, oh, no, you can't cover everything. You need to really see what you can do. So I decided that, okay, I was going to look at feature filmmakers and documentary filmmakers. So I began with feature filmmakers and documentary filmmakers. And then well into when I started writing, we realized that I think I had written about 7 chapters. And then we realized that it was too much, so I had to still cut down.
Yes. And
so I had to now cut the documentary filmmaker and focus on the feature filmmakers. So even at that, let us say, probably less than a year or so ago, I was still that broad, you know. But then we decided I should cut down and focus on these 3 filmmakers, particularly because they were feature filmmakers. And what I did with my analysis was that I looked at recurring themes in their films. So it was very easy to justify recurring themes across feature filmmakers other than a documentary, which was more projecting the reality than just fiction.
That's
right.
You
know, so cutting down to fiction, then it became a bit more relevant and more. That's where we put the focus on.
Look, I think you've given us a great description of that part of your journey. I remember a colleague saying to me the great words, "This is a very important point, but it's not within the scope of this thesis."
Yep.
And I think that sentence is a really important sentence for everyone to remember, whether they actually place it in their thesis or place it in their head. So you obviously had to struggle with focus and with the breadth of what you were doing, but now you're ready to write up, you're almost ready to submit, so it's fantastic. But of course, being in Australia, how have you found that?
Wow, it's been a great experience. It's been very good. I never thought I could, embark on this journey, but it's been quite a fantastic experience because I've had great supervisors who have been very keen on what I was writing about, and the direction was very good. I've had opportunity to have a scholarship.
Yes, very important.
Very important. And then I also had research training, which I don't think I could have had if I had probably studied in Ghana, the kind of training I had here.
And that training was about how to get your PhD together, how to focus. How to write your literature review, how to construct your research questions, which was very important. I think later last year, when I was going to do my last progress review, I attended this course on how to write an effective introductory chapter, and it was brilliant. Oh, good.
It was brilliant. It opened my eyes. I had never thought of how I was going to write my introduction. Even last October, I had never thought of how I was going to write the introduction. But that course really taught me what to think about, how to start the chapter, what to write, what to include, And so again, it made me more focused because I had to think about what scope I had covered in the study, and all that, which was very great. And I remember I called a friend of mine who is also doing his PhD back home in Ghana. I was telling him, I've been amazed today because I never thought the research questions I began with will change, But even how to structure that sentence is very key.
Yes.
I think I had one question that was a what question, and that course made me think about how I was going to answer such a question if I had a what question.
Right.
And so I had to think about, now I have to think of how to change it to. So I ended up writing about to what extent or in what ways, you know, I reframed that question to be able to answer it in the conclusion. So it's been very great that I've had the opportunity to attend all these training courses to give me that insight into research and what I'm supposed to be doing.
Well, that's a very important point Grace is making. The university offers numerous research training in specifics through the research group here, and please do them. Now, what's your longer term plan? Now, you're about to be a doctor. Do you hope to get a postdoc in Australia or to go back home to Ghana, or what's your thoughts?
Well, at this point, my focus is to finish it and submit it and write some research papers.
Yes.
That's the focus. And I haven't thought of what to do next. I'm still thinking about what I'm going to do. I don't know, I'm still engrossed in finishing it. That's the major concern now, which hopefully by next week it should be ready for submission.
Wow. And your family is back in Ghana?
No, they are back here with me. So
oh, lovely.
Yes, the decision we make, it's going to be a family decision. We have to decide together
what you want to do.
What we want to do. Yeah. The important thing was to support me to finish it. And so now that we are about to finish, we'll take it from there.
So what advice would you give someone in Ghana who thought, a woman in Ghana, who would like to advance her education?
Well, I've had a few friends or few students I thought back home who we chat regularly, and they ask, so what can we do? I always tell them that if you want to study back home in Ghana, that's fine. If you want to explore other opportunities, that's fine. But just focus, just write up, send your applications to different places. You don't know where the opportunity will come from. You know, I was lucky enough that I sent one application to Denmark and I got an admission, and I sent one application to Australia and I got admission. But your case may not be the same. Just send them to places that you are interested in studying. And hopefully
the application should be a high quality, shouldn't it?
Yes, of course, it should be.
You know, you'd have to outline what you thought your research was, what the contribution to knowledge was, what the literature. Would you like to comment on your proposal?
Yeah, your proposal should be first of all, it should be something you are interested in doing. You know, you shouldn't pick anything because you want to travel or you want to study, advanced study, you want to do advanced study, so you do anything. You should be something you are very interested in, very passionate about that you want to do. Because that's what is going to sustain you throughout the 4 years. So first of all, you must be interested. And then you must make sure that your proposal is very substantial. Your topic, your questions, even though you may not see the clear contribution your work, you must find some substantial contributions the work is going to make to knowledge. You must be able to understand the general topic, that you must have basic knowledge of the literature, you know, in that area and all those resources. And I think putting it together and getting help if you need to, because I remember writing my proposal, I took it back and forth with my supervisor, you know, for guidance and all that. So you shouldn't be shy to seek help if you need to.
That's all very good points about your research proposal, because a research proposal goes to a research dean or deputy dean, and then it goes to a research committee. And people are looking for someone who can really express. It might be, I would recommend a research proposal for a traditional PhD to be somewhere towards 1,000 words, with a reading list somewhere towards 100 or... Would you think that would be kind of reasonable for a research proposal for a traditional PhD? Somewhere between 500 and 1,000 words, and somewhere between 75 and 100 references?
Yeah, I think, well, probably because I built on my
Yes.
master's, so it wasn't too difficult finding literature and all that. But if it's a new topic here, you should do it justice, and you should have that much basic knowledge, that much reference, so you will be able to understand the general topics and areas that have been covered, and what contribution you are bringing to where you find any gap.
Because you're really pitching it to a group of research-savvy people who are going to say, well, is this a worthwhile topic? Do I think this person can do it? Do I think they've got the capacity to do it? Do I think they're going to stick with it? They will ask all those kinds of questions.
And your proposal must be able to answer, because you'll not be there to ask. You will not be there to answer those questions.
That's
so
right,
the proposal must address all those issues.
Well, Joyce, thank you very much for coming today. You've really cleared up a lot of questions that the PhD students will be very interested in, whether they're national or international students, and I recommend you as doctor quite shortly. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This has been a Swinburne production.